So we are Memtes, a few lines above the middle of the page, and the line that we are up to when we're on begins with the word mikoach sechel hahiyuli ho'atzmi. We will still on that. Mikoach sechel.
Around the middle of the page.
Yeah, that's it.
So we were discussing the whole time Yichud Avo. When there's a Yichud between chochmah and binah, which we already discussed it. And the point was that Yichud Avo is what's called a Yichud Ruchni. Yichud Ruchni means that the Yichud is between two things that really appreciate one another. And therefore, the Yichud is not drawn, not 100% an essential presence of these entities, like chochmah and binah. It presents the ha'ora of chochmah and binah. Because binah can appreciate chochmah, what it is, and therefore it doesn't have to be penetrating into its essence. And then there is a completely different realm. It's called zivug zoom, and there it is called zivug gufni. And we are explaining that although this zivug is at a much lower level, this is zivug gufni, in contrast to zivug ruchni. And in simple terms, ruchni means, as we said, there's a full appreciation of what connects it to. Whereas gufni is, in a sense, superimposed. Two separate entities are joined together. And
sorry, in a way superimposed because it's two things that don't fully...
Two separate entities remaining separate, and they're joined together.
Okay.
So the question is, what affects this joining? This is why we're saying that this joining is not something which is recognized and appreciated, like in chochmah and binah. But binah fully understands and relates to chochmah. It's a joining between two separate entities, and the two separate entities remain two separate entities. So then, what then affects this joining? So normally, the simple answer to that is that they both recognize, they both realize that there is something superior to both of them. And they're both, so to speak, subservient and submissive to this higher truth. However, submissive to this higher truth does not in effect affect a joining between the two entities. Right? Submission means that they do what they need to do because the higher truth is compelling them to do it. So that's not really a zivug. But here we're saying there is a zivug. And the reason that there is a zivug is that this higher truth, although it is higher than their own mitzvahs, but in their essence, they recognize this higher truth. This is what's called chochmah hiyuli atzmi, sechel hiyuli atzmi.
I missed this last, how we got to sechel hiyuli atzmi. They have a submission to something that's beyond them, and this brings about the union.
So you said that this is not a union. They remain outside of the union. Something is bringing them together.
It's not a union because they keep their separate identities.
No, if we were to say, follow this is a step-by-step description, presentation. They are two separate entities. So therefore, how is their joining affected? What makes them join?
Something beyond.
So clearly recognize that there's something beyond them, something greater than them. So in this element, something beyond them, something greater than them, we have to go into that concept and focus into that and understand where is the real joined element. Because if the joining is simply because the higher element, the higher self, is compelling their joining, so then that's not a real joint. Two people are running a business in partnership, and they realize that one without the other cannot sustain the business, and therefore they joined. Are they joined? They each doing the business for their own. The impetus to do the business is independent of each other. So it's not a real joint. It's not a union between them.
They have common.
It's a partnership of convenience, of
okay.
expediency.
Okay.
But they need each other.
They need each other, but they need each other for their own purposes. Not a real zivug, like chochmah and binah, where they're actually imbued into each other.
No. How do we see the zivug? How do we see the zivug? Where is the zivug element?
It begets, it creates an entity. It has to be a zivug.
I'm just jumping. I'm waiting for the answer. That's all.
All right, good. So I'm saying, this alone does not really create a zivug. It creates a partnership. Where is the zivug element? How is that effectuated? Again, it is due to a higher presence. The question is, where is this higher presence? If the higher presence is outside of them, then that doesn't create a zivug. If the higher presence is sensed within themselves, then it creates a zivug. Each thing is an entity unto itself. But deep down, it recognizes that what is its real presence is not its own, it is what is given to it from a higher self, from a higher source, independently of anything else. If you have this, I'll give you, I'll broaden out the principle.
The last piece again, they each sense within themselves this what is higher than themselves.
They sense that they themselves, that the inner element, their own inner element, their own inner truth, is not their own. It is from this higher source. This is what makes them real.
Okay, it's starting to sound like zivug ruchni, which we just but it's not. It's still gufni, but yet they sense this higher, that's their own inner truth. It's starting to sound like zivug ruchni.
No.
Okay.
No. Okay, we'll come back to zivug. Okay. In other words, okay. So far, I want to step up and give us a little bit of a handle on this principle. We speak many times about the phenomenon of a name, and we're saying that the name, although it is something which is given to the person in welcoming the person into the world, and yet the name actually represents a deeper and a truer element in the person than the person himself, than that which he is on his own. As evidence from the various things that we have talked. How can that be? He is a person, he's a fully born a child, breathes on his own, and eats and so forth. So you give him a name, and that's when he becomes a real entity. Okay, I'd like you to follow this. Going back to our principle of principles, that what is the truth of all existence is the first being. The first being. What's the issue? Which means that the real truth of every entity is its connection, its recognition that there is an influx of the first being in him rather than what he is. This in first being, this puts him in smack in the middle of the entire creation. Because what's the issue? Mamzu calling him brings everything forth. And we discussed many times what is a name? A name is for the purpose of being addressed by someone else. So we say, oh, that's an external thing. That's insignificant to the person. When we reflect on these words, which just now finished saying, this is the real person. The real person is his mission in life that was given to him by his creator. By his creator. That's a real person. This is the essence of the person. Everything else is a ha'aretz, could say this. And this is really part and parcel of the entity, of the human being, of this entity. Because as evidenced by the fact that if a person has everything for himself, everything he needs, but he's outside of the world, he can't live. He's not real. This reality is given to him by his creator. In other words, the creator is what makes him real. And if he misses the creator in him, then he's not real.
That's name in this case.
The name represents this in a person and captures this principle. To translate it in simple terms, which we already actually did, but the real person is his godly mission. It sounds like a ruchniism. This is the reality of the person. This is what makes him tick. What makes him sense that he is for real. Totally contrary to all the stupidities that we have now in the world. This sense of the first being in him. So this is sensed really. This is beyond the neshama. This is what's called sechel hayuli ho'atzmi. This is the self-awareness of the neshama. The neshama is a godly entity and presence. But as we spoke many times, that a presence that's not aware of itself is not a presence. The self-awareness of the neshama is the awareness of its godly mission, of its godly presence. Because, yes, indeed, the godly presence, that is true presence. Amit is him also. And this is what he says over here, that this zivu gufni comes all right, we'll start a line above. That the him from Amshocha from Zivu Gufni is a hashpoah that comes, is a hashpoah pnimis v'yatzmis. Al derech moshel b'hashpoah zatim people. An example of that is hashpoah zatim. Lohoili b'doim eloi, which has the effect to give birth, the doim eloi, to his likeness. And we expressed the other day, what is the emphasis of the word b'doim eloi? The fact that the Heiloda is b'doim eloi to his likeness is a clear indication that this is not a neutral process coming from the person, but this is something that the human being at his deepest sense of what he is produces intentionally. That's why it's b'doim eloi.
Why does that prove that it's, in other words, why couldn't B'doim eloi come as an inadvertent, why does it have to be intentional and etc.?
Right, we'll see in a moment. But just bear in mind what I've said.
Yeah.
Shenimshach bozeh, where in this process is drawn mibchinas atzmus ho'av, from the element of the atzmus ho'av, of the essence of the av. Mikoach sechel ha'hiyuli ho'atzmi. Mikoach sechel ha'hiyuli ho'atzmi. Now sechel, we always know that sechel is already a koyach, comes out from chochmah, is a lower koyches. It's lower than koyches makifi. Here we're going to the etzem itself. What is the koyach sechel ha'hiyuli ho'atzmi? So this is what we explain. The real complementary element in a real presence is self-knowledge. This self-knowledge is not something that he finds out. Like those idiots say, the first time he knows about himself when he gets hit or he enjoys food. No. Self-knowledge comes with birth. This is because he is born a real entity. And it is from this sechel, you ask me, that all sechel is eventually develops. All awareness is eventually develops. This sechel, you ask me, knows essentially only himself. But because it's Yuli Huatzmi, what is himself? What does he know about himself? That he is a God of creation. This is what Atzmi is. The Koi Yuli Atzmi is knowing that there's a big world around him.
Big what?
World, not by observation, but by personal presence. I'm for real. Where am I? In a real presence. Why am I real for you? Because there's a reality. The God reality has imbued itself in me. But it's called sechel. This sechel element, as I said, normally we say sechel is something which is lower than the essence. This sechel is the essence itself. This represents the essence, because an essence, as we said many times, that's not self-aware, is not an essence. It's a non-entity, no matter what riches it has. To illustrate this point, we've spoken about it many times. I'm just going to go straight to the point. If a person has wealth and doesn't know how to appreciate it, does he have wealth? Is he wealthy?
Nope.
Is he wealthy? For a thief, he is wealthy. But for him, he is not wealthy. And not in simple terms, he knows what he has, but he has no significance. He has no real presence. Roshim Shat Sechel Hayuli Ha'atzmi. It's Sechel. Now, if you ask his taivas, oh, you have money, do you appreciate money? Yes, of course I appreciate it. But that's not real. Or anything else. This is, and so to speak, the finest element of sechel, of the human sense of reality, of value. And we say that a person is not a full-fledged person until he has developed and risen to that state, and what's this called maturity. Maturity. Maturity is not, what can I do with this? Maturity relates to the reality of everything. This sechel yuli atzmi, this is what elicits, that brings out his essence in this deeper, in giving birth to bedoimaloi. Why bedoimaloi? Because it is self-knowledge. It's knowing what did the Rebbe should create here, and that is the reality which he's bringing to the table, so to speak. Just 1 second. Giving birth is an extremely, and I said it's essential, the most deepest thing that there is in a person. I once overheard that, I think I mentioned to you, the conversation on the elevator. That this emaciated guy, really, what's the difference? Giving birth and adopting is even greater than giving birth. You really love the guy to look, you went out of your way to adopt the kid. And giving birth, the way you express it, I don't want to mention. This is the impoverished world because yes, indeed, in the world you can give birth by relating to a person that means nothing to you. There is absolutely no relationship. Then it seems like it's an insignificant thing. Eating a piece of cake. But in reality, that's not a real relationship at all. And the real relationship is the holy b'doimeloi. It is a personal relationship, 100% commitment. And the commitment is due to the fact that, as you said, because that is where the person becomes real.
The former would not be considered b'doimeloi, or it would on some deep level.
Well,
because all the sechel hayuli atzmi, this is all taking place
at a higher level.
It's proactive on a very subconscious level.
That, yes, absolutely. But ultimately, without in any inkling, any connection to sechel hayuli atzmi, they couldn't give birth. It's one of the reasons that we have this phenomenon that it's the same thing happening and it's not real. Interesting that a mule, perfectly healthy animal, can give birth. He doesn't have that sense of reality. And lahavdul, a human being, is a similar thing. Except, like you said, a human being may not be chitzonis aware, but deep down he is aware. In any case, coming back to the singing. So the point is that zivug gufni is mamshich from the atzmus oav, from koyach hasechel hayuli ho atzmi, as we said, but koyach hasechel hayuli ho atzmi. Yuli means innate, before he becomes conscious sechel, functioning sechel. It is knowing himself, knowing oneself. Being aware of oneself is not finding out about himself. This is the reality of the self. What makes a person a real presence in the world is the fact that he knows himself. And by knowing himself, he knows everything else.
But it's knowing oneself in the context.
What?
Knowing oneself in the context of how he fits into the world. In other words, that's really himself.
Fitting into the world is only a secondary step. Because he knows himself. Therefore, when he is in the world, he's aware that he is in the world.
I'm saying the name aspect. The name aspect, he doesn't know himself. He knows himself.
The name aspect enables him to be part of the world. It doesn't put him into the world.
So this knowing himself, where does this fit in?
Knowing himself fits in that yes, he's indeed a life element is his own experience, but he's there to show himself. He's not there to be hidden internally.
That's why he gets birth.
He's here to show himself. And sechel is the showing element. Sechel is the awareness, the knowing.
sorry, I want to ask something slightly connected, but if you cut me off, it's a little off topic. But being that it's Shevat, I read articles about how it's really the Rebbe that brings out who the person is, because he's able to, he's putting that person in his context of what his shlichus in the world is, so to speak. But yet here we're saying the person has it inherently, regardless.
Does the Rebbe create his shlichus, or the Rebbe reveals his shlichus?
This is the creation of the whole thing.
Yeah.
He makes it conscious.
He brings it out. He identifies it. Right. Just wanted to, we should understand at least the words. And this is called Atzmus Ha'av. Why is this Etzem Ha'av? This is sechel. This is awareness of the self. Awareness of the self, that is the real person. Without awareness, there's no real person. Okay, let's continue. K'moi came in the Neshomes. So likewise, when the Neshomes, this is how we came into this. Said the Neshomes, they are created as a result of Zivug Gufni. Zivug Zun. And Zivug Gufni, this Zivug Zun brings a more essential element, Milmailo, than Zivug Gufni. So the Neshomes are described as Bonim Lamokim, children of Hashem. And the reason they call Bonim Lamokim is that because the root of their existence, of their coming into being, is the bechinas helem ha'atzmi de chochmah. From the beginning, from the element, Helam Ha'atzmi de chochmah. Again, chochmah. And as we explained, chochmah is the first moment of sechel, which means chochmah is awareness. So why do we say chochmah? The chochmah is aware of that which is of the etzem, aware of the Ayin Benotzim. The awareness is superior to that which it is aware of.
How does it make sense? Superior to that which is
How does that make sense in Masakir?
What's that?
How does that make sense?
The Oinig in the Ratzon is like the thing itself, but the awareness is the significant awareness of what that.
The awareness is the motivation in him, but that he's coming from someplace.
So like from below, like as if to say from below, this awareness is more important than.
From what?
From below, this awareness is more.
Below?
Milamata. Or
from below?
Yeah, because in general it cannot be that the awareness is more important than the subject of what it's aware of.
That's what you said all the time. Awareness is what makes the etzem into an etzem. Because awareness means that there is a reality to it. Where does he get the reality from? What's the issue?
Awareness is the.
1 second. Here's a cup. Okay. I don't know, but it's made of plastic and some kind of covering. Must be some kind of a metal, and it's formed in a certain field. Okay. Now, suppose that this element, like the Edis are saying, came automatically somehow different winds and ricks and brags came worried about. What does it stand for? What this stands for is the human intent of making it. This is what it says. Not how you use it, not how much it weighs, how much materials in this, how much we paid for it. This is the real thing. That's the awareness of the subject. It's not the object. This is what we've been learning all the time. The intent of something. That's the real thing. And you know at what level? On the inception level. The person conceptualize a car before he even has a means to build it, doesn't even have the idea how he can make it. The idea itself, that is the real thing. The first car was made by Odomrish, by Noach, with a wagon. It's the same thing, same spirit.
Okay, and inside we were saying the awareness is more fundamental or important than the thing about of which it is aware. That was going on.
Awareness is what gives it reality.
Is what?
Reality.
So you don't distinguish between meaning and purpose and reality. There can be no reality without purpose.
Yeah, well, yes, but you go into there, we're going to go into elaborate. You understand the principle there right now. This is why it is possible a person to be awake, to wake up, and stay in bed, and not realize what are you doing in bed, because it doesn't become self-conscious. You know, here I am. He drowns himself away into the unconscious presence. And then he becomes conscious. Hey, he said, wait, Ani, there's a real. I'm for real. I'm for real. He gets up. I'm for real means I have what to do. All right, let's continue. I mentioned many times, learning these very fine things, that we all have to realize that this is known to your sechel only. It is not known in your verbiage, in your vocabulary. So we have to really think in what is being said here. Sechel hiyuli ho'atzmi. That means sechel is not what triggers, what bothers us, and we figure out how to get out of the problem. That's not what sechel is, the essential sechel. Sechel hiyuli means the awareness of the truth, about one's own truth. Ho'atzmi, that comes part and parcel with the etzem. That gives him a real presence. And it is this sechel ho'atzmi, Yuli ho'atzmi, that continues to lower the person if he wastes his time. What's the point? I wasted my time. So what? What would I have done if I did not waste my time? Eat another bagel? I mean, what's the point? What's so terrible? And the person feels really very despondent. Because the real essence has been completely ignored, has not been participant in doing this period. We think that when we sit and eat beyond our capacity, we say, oh, it's not healthy, it's my time. That's what bothers you. Not true. What bothers you is that you're wasting your time.
This word hiyuli, what's hiyuli mean?
Hiyuli is a word that does not hardly have this is from Greek. And it hardly has the Greek philosophers try to identify the entity of sechel prior to its coming to a functioning level. And on what basis it's being identified? On the basis that you're saying that sechel is inherent in the essence of the nefesh. It's called sechel hiyuli. Before the sechel has developed into an actual entity.
So Yuli has a Greek root?
Yeah, Yuli is a Greek word.
And
It's where we get the word helium.
What?
How do you translate it exactly? What's the translation? The literal translation?
Initial. And the principle behind this is that sechel, that may seem to us that this is something which is just a response, as a trigger, as we discussed many times. There is sechel and there is instinct. Instinct is an instinctive response. Sechel is a real knowledge of the truth. And therefore this sechel, this is why we say a human being acts a pis sechel. Even if he does instinctive things, walking, talking, moving his hand, feeding himself. But he is at the same time aware of a certain reality way beyond that of the animal. This is where the fallacy of comparing the human being to the animal. Oh, some animals also eat by feeding themselves. A monkey. You ever see a monkey eat a banana? Perfect. Sits there and peels a banana and eats it. Is that comparable to a human being eating a banana? Exactly the same activity. The answer is absolutely not. This is what confused many people, and I created a whole horrific philosophy. The human being has a sechel element, has a truth. This is how it should be, not this is how it's convenient. This is how it lends itself to be done. This is the sechel element. Like I pointed out many times, we've been into survey, that I know if you experience we had the babies, and she wanted to pick up the food with her spoon, and failed. The spoon, and she didn't know how, she couldn't manage to pick it up with the food. So, in last resort, she wanted to pick it up with her hand. But how are you supposed to eat? Through a spoon. So she puts it with her hand, threw the food into the spoon, and feeds herself. That's a sechel ha'adam. And if you eat with your hands, you feel something is wrong. But you picked up the food with your hand already.
But this is not natural. This is through training.
It's not through training. How training that 2-year-old kid you don't train. This is all. This is the exposure of the child to a human value, immediately understanding it. Because he has this innate hand sechel.
When you expose it, you reveal it from him. That's the point.
Louder.
Yeah,
Can't hear the question.
yeah. That's what we always say. There's a trigger to awake the sechel, but then it's sechel. All right, let's continue. We can stay on every point forever. If we understand it a little better, it's worth it. K'moy came in the shams. Okay, can we cross this bridge now? K'moy came in the shams. And the coin by my mokoim. Shoyrish his havusam. The root of their coming, of their being, who mibchinas helam ha'atzmi de chochmah. This is from helam ha'atzmi de chochmah. What is helam ha'atzmi de chochmah? Chochmah is sechel is principally. Or let's think about this. Chochmah is sechel is principally the exposure of the nefesh. That's what sechel is. Chochmah is the awareness of the nefesh. Not the essence of the nefesh, like Ayin and Galotzen, that is an internal experience. So what does Helam Ho'atzmi, the chochmah, mean? How does it come to be altogether? The answer is that because the nefesh is a real presence, therefore it has chochmah inherent in its presence. And this chochmah element represents that this is a real presence. It is not there just simply for self-preservation. It is there to be there. It's called chochmah. Helam ha'asmit from the chochmah is totally behelam. Totally behelam. In other words, it does not express itself. There's no way to identify it, but inherently, in etzem, it is functioning as chochmah. Shehu bechinas chochmah hagdumo shebe'atzmus. I will try to translate these words. It's not new for those who are trying to. Bechinas chochmah hagdumo shebe'atzmus. The word giduma means initial, original. The principle of originality is that it never came to be. It has an original presence. Chochmah HaGduma. Which is in Atzmus. Because Atzmus is Kodum. And there's Chochmah HaGduma should be Atzmus. And thus, it is of the quality, of the aspect of Helam Ho'atzmi himself, of the initial Ein Sof element, that Helam Ho'atzmi, before Ein Sof presents itself at all. And as we point out all the time, there's no way we'll understand Helam Ho'atzmi and Ein Sof and so forth. But just to understand these words, which we are given the opportunity, so to speak, taking, so to speak, in the inner chambers of reality. That Atzmus and Sof, there is the Inyan HaChochmah. Why? Because it's a real thing. It's because that's what reality is. Let's go. What?
How did you translate Benel and Macom? I didn't understand.
What?
Two lines up. Sorry.
Boy Malcolm, children to neighbors.
Oh, okay.
Malcolm is Hashem.
Malcolm is Hashem.
Bezehu. And thus, this is the meaning of what the Gemara says. Bereishis, Bishvil Yisrael, Shenikroim Reishis. Bereishis means Beis Reishis, two Reishis. The word Reishis essentially means Kodem. Reishis means the initial, the original. There are two things that are called the original. And the two things that are called the original, that Beis Reishis, Bishvil Yisrael Shenikroim Reishis, for the sake of Yisrael that are called Reishis, or Bishvil HaTorah, etc. The Torah is also called Reishis. Which means to say the following: the klal is horos and shabo eilames, in contrast to the world. The will for worlds, the klal is horos and shabo eilames, the overall will that there should be a world who shuhu rak rotzen chitzeini, which is only a rotzen chitzeini, an external rotzen. An external rotzen means a rotzen that was initiated from outside. Shebishvil eze kavona pnimis, and it is for the sake of bringing out some internal and deeper kavona intent canal. This is the rotzen ba'ilams. And this rotzen ba'ilams, Hashem wanted worlds, wants worlds. Why does He want world? There is a kavanah in this, even though it's rotzen, even though it's will, and will we say is above reason, but there's a kavanah pnimis that this rotzen fulfills. The kavanah pnimis is a kavanah ha-pnimis. This kavanah pnimis in the Neshamas Yisrael. They are the Neshamas Yisrael. Shezehu tachlis ha-mechuvan bebrias ha'olam. This is the ultimate intent in the creation of the world. Let me try and present it as much as it is presentable. The creation of the world, as we're saying over here, is rooted in pnimius and avatzmus. In keduma, in that which is in the original. If it is rooted in the original, there is some aspect of this originality that has to be represented in the world.
Yeah, there always has to be in the effect something the cause. So.
Right.
What was right? What do you say?
Something in the effect has to be from the cause. This is not a new concept here.
Maybe it remains cause.
What?
Maybe to say it remains cause, it doesn't become an effect. It still remains original.
Yeah, but now it is revealed in the effect, in the creation. In the creation, there must be an element of that which of the origin that initiated. Maybe we'll come back. Maybe I'll elaborate a little bit on this. But this is clear. The initial, so to speak, the origin is lacking nothing. Is our original reality. There's absolutely no way to explain why would he want anything else. There is no reason whatsoever. And from a reason's perspective, we can never come to it because there is no reason. But to come to it and understand it, we can only understand it from a perspective of the final product. The final product reveals this essence. And therefore, for some reason, he wanted that his essence should be revealed. And therefore, this becomes, that we cannot explain why. But nevertheless, this is what the creation represents, the revelation of his essence. The creation does not present its essence at all. It's all chitzonius. It's not a real thing. It doesn't represent an essential reality. Therefore, there has to be in the creation an aspect of that essence, of the original truth. And that is Yisrael and Torah. Yisrael and Torah represent the original truth as it is known in chochmah geduma, in chochmah, in the initial chochmah, in chochmah atzmos. And this is what the creation is about. So let me take a little, to lighten things up, illustration of this concept on the human level. What's the matter?
No, I'm happy you're on.
Huh?
No, nothing's wrong.
What makes you smile?
You said to lighten things up.
We speak all the time, but the Gemara says, "Odom shein lo bayis, odom einay odom." That a person who does not have a home is not a human being, in the full sense of the word. Whatever the explanation is, which we discussed many times, but ultimately, what is a house? A house is a place where a person can sit quietly, not be disturbed by the elements, by the wind, and by the cold, and by the rain, and by any kind of other intrusion. It can be, so to speak, focused on his own interest and his own activity, his own presence. That's what a home is. So, Bechitzoni is the home, and that which separates him from everything else, from the effects of the elements, and he has his peace.
He has his what?
His peace.
Peace.
But then, as we discuss this further and further, and to illustrate the real point in the home, we take an extreme example. What if a person were given the Empire State Building as his personal home? All the chitzonistic benefits are there, and more. even to the point he can go crazy going through his own home. And yet he will say, no, this is not a home. I've given you everything that you possibly can identify that you need. This identifiable element is not the origin of the home. And I'm missing the origin. I'm missing the sense of this is my home. I have everything in terms of external supplies. But the original point that a man has to have a home is missing. It's not a home. This is no different than living in a hotel. I have all the conveniences. And worse, hotel at least there's some kind of circumscription where I can go. This is go wild. This is the shot that ultimately the real essence of the original element. Original means origin means that which we get something before it came into being. A home is not a response to the inconvenience of being outside, of being exposed to the winds and to the cold and the rain. That's not what a home is. It's not a response to any external experience. A home is representing the reality of the human being himself. Odom she'ein Beis ein Odom. Doesn't say he's not convenient. Ein Odom is not a human being. In the present, in the world. And no matter how you protect him, how you want to give him and so forth, you have to have the sense of the original sense of it. And if you give him everything else, and he doesn't have the sense of the original, that this is my home, it doesn't happen. V'shem Shad, you have the world, and the world is a huge world. But the world was created by, there was an initial, the original element that brought out the uniform world. The original element is something which is in Ayin Elokus itself. This is the chochmah identifies Elokus, Atzmus itself. Neshamas Yisrael and Torah. And that is the original reality of world.
Mashal, the original element would be that the home is catered to the person's essence. That the home is.
That doesn't cater.
The home represents the person's essence. Because it's to bring out it's a home for the essence.
It brings out the reality of the essence. In our world comes out a home for the essence. The fact that the essence needs a home, that's a reality. Essence demands a home because that's when it becomes an essential presence in the world. To translate essence in the world, the first and foremost is by having a home.
The Empire State Building does not do that because it's not a house for the essence. It's not a house for his essence.
It doesn't represent him. Like we said before about the whole bit doimelot.
That's what we call the original. That's the kadmon aspect. Why is that called kadmon? Why is this?
In the person, it's just a kadmon. This is
Because it's where the world meets the essence. It's where the
it's Kadmon in the person who tells. What was the intent in the creation of a human being? Before he was created. Once he's created, he has all kinds of needs.
and so what was the intent that the essence be in the world? That the
That there should be in the world a presentation of a truth, of an essential truth. That makes the world worthwhile.
Saying the essence of a Jew or a non-Jew?
That means that the Kedima, the original, that means the Kedima, which was...
Kedima is original.
That means that of the Kedima should be in this...
In this world. Chochmah ha-Geduma. Geduma means the original, that comes from the Etzem itself.
It wasn't created.
It wasn't created, right? Exactly right.
The last Lois Burach Dira V'Tachtoinim, that's the same thing.
Yeah, the ultimate it brings the whole thing in.
The Keduma should make a...
Coming back to our moshel of a home, the person's home. Yes, the home is measured according to his mind, according to his convenience and so forth. But ultimately, the home becomes so developed and so furnished that whatever he turns, he identifies himself with it.
Hello?
Hi, can I conduct you again?
His mission, and he's created, the intention was that he should make a dwelling place for Hashem here.
He affects that dwelling place. And the dwelling place is that wherever you turn, you see the same truth.
And this with the Empire State Building not being suitable, this was bringing out that there's an inner purpose that almost has a dimension.
On a human scale, there has to be a home that represents a human being, and one single human being, not a nation, not a country, one single human being. That flows from the human reality. And then within that, in his home, the person has all the things that represent his active life.
Is it so there's some kind of essential purpose that is translated into dimension almost in this world.
Yes.
And it has to be fitting.
It could be said, this is in light of what we're discussing, but it could be said that the earth was measured according to the human psyche.
According to the
human capacity of conceptualization. So you would feel, yeah, this is the world I'm living in.
Okay. So on the one hand it contains kind of infinity, but on the other hand it's like be according to the
All right, so the point that we wanted to understand is this the hamshacha that comes as a result of zivug gufni, which is the essence, which was the chochmah ha-geduma of the person, sechel hiyuli, and that's an emotional, and the nimshal, this is the chochmah ha-geduma. of Ein Sof, which is represented in Israel and Tov.
And right, and this chochmah haduma that is in the zivug gufni is that each kind of senses inwardly that you start out saying it's not that they're unified externally, but they have some inner sense.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Self-awareness, that's the reality of the person.
Right.
This is the extent to which we are going to discuss it, because this is the extent to which we can possibly hope to think of it.